All right. Monday night, not expecting to see the three of us unless you're tapped in with us on Spaces and on Daily Bread earlier today. But it is the best time of the year. We're starting off March a few hours early here just because conference tournaments tipped today. Sorry, the NAC, we didn't get you with the preview. We got about 12 to 13 roughly planned out from Daily Bread Media. We're currently live on Paid for Play on Twitter. And you always know YouTube at Daily Bread Media, the best way to be checking us out here. We got two conference previews coming at you live. We'll start it off with the ASun, and then we'll get into the Sunbelt here. The ASun tips tomorrow. The Sunbelt doesn't tip till Thursday, but there's gambling lines out. They're basically out for every major conference. We'll be looking at FanDuel just because they have their odds posted and listed already. But we're going to give you a few segments in each one about who should you not even be worried about, upsets to watch for. Then we got to get into bracket talk. Everyone's going to be starting their bracket talk tomorrow. We're coming at you a day early because that's what Paid for Play does. As usual, joined by Steven and Spin. We'll be bringing in other guests from the top networks. Like we'll probably bring in D-Rock and Goose for the Big Ten. Hopefully get Jose in for the Mountain West and our other guys that we rock with. So if you cover one of these conferences and want to tap in for one of these streams, go for it. We'll probably spend 20 to 30 minutes since we only got two today. It'll be a nice little hour to hour and a half stream. Steven's probably sweating that San Diego State Wyoming game as well. So if you're sweating any bets, be sure to be dropping them in the channel. But Steven, how you doing today on this late Monday night?
Conference tournaments, there's only been one game. I'm already heated. Already got a bad beat. 0 for 1. I can't say it's a game I shouldn't have lost because obviously they lost. You can't change it, but just a terrible second half for me to watch. Yeah, pulling hard for San Diego State right now because that'll essentially, not guaranteed, but essentially cash my Boise State future to win the Mountain West, which will be nice. But yeah, I'm ready to get into these conferences, man. One of them is my favorite type of conference tournament. The other one is one of the ones I can kind of do without, but we'll get into that later.
Do without. You're not a real fan, Steven. We'll have to remove you for that. Put you in like a 2-minute timeout. Spin, how you doing on this Monday?
Man, I'm doing great now. Diamond Club, we just cashed a plus money ticket on Syracuse. Rex cashed an over ticket, and the best news of the day, it is official. Regular season conference champions, the Towson Tigers. I've been saying it for weeks upon weeks upon weeks. I will say it again. They will go to Washington, D.C. They will win the Colonial tournament. They will represent the Colonial in the big dance, but that breakdown is for another night. Let's get into the ones we got.
Yeah, I was about to say, Spin, we'll finish up our full schedule. We'll be dropping it out. We won't have the times, but we'll have the days that we'll be covering. And we'll get out that Google Doc form for you guys to submit since we are giving a $100 giveaway, which is where from the A10 to the American, all the ones that tip next Tuesday to the weekend, you just have to submit your winner, put your Twitter handle. You can fade our advice. You can take our advice in that, but it's a chance for you to walk out $100 richer. And you already know we'll have a ESPN bracket challenge as well for a giveaway for over $100. So thank you for tapping into these previews. I got the Twitter up, so we want to definitely be hearing who you're placing your futures on, any of your upsets to watch. But let's get into the ASun. So for each of these, you kind of have to give a little bit of a preface because sometimes they change from conference to conference, like the ASun. They do it a way that I don't want to say respect, but I'm not a fan of, where the higher seed hosts every game. And even on top of that, they threw in their stupid division still to make the bracket seeding even more annoying. So the way you have to look at it, we've tweeted it out on Twitter of all the way the brackets are, the odds that are set up for each one. So that's kind of where go to Paid for Play at Twitter to get those extra cheat sheet or whatever you want to do. But you can basically say it's Liberty side of the bracket, Jacksonville State side of the bracket, and they split based on their record within their side of the division. So if you want to say one team got screwed over for it, it was North Florida. they technically have to travel to Lipscomb now on the first game because North Florida did have a higher record. But since they ranked 4th in the West, I believe it is, and Lipscomb ranked 3rd in the East, or it could be 4 and 5, North Florida does not get a home game instead. One last thing before we get into the odds. This is March 1st to March 8th, so you get no back-to-back games. You get travel spots since they have to go to the other campuses. So your games are on March 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 8th. Odds. I'll rattle off the top 5, and then I'll let SpinDoc let me know who he's going to cross off instantly. You have Liberty as the favorites at plus 115. You got Jacksonville State at plus 165. Jacksonville plus 900. Bellarmine plus 1300. FGCU plus 1600. Then you got everyone above 2,700. So Spin and the ASun, who's going home early, or who do you just not would say that price, even though it is plus 5,000 on Lipscomb, it's not even worth taking a flyer?
Everything from Lipscomb on down. I don't see a whole lot of things to like about any of those teams. So that's 5. So I'm crossing 5 off right off the bat. I think that you realistically could cross off Kennesaw even at the plus 2,700. And for me, not because I think that they're really like that horrible in comparison. I just think that plus 2,700, given the road they'd have to follow and a few things we'll talk about in a little bit, just probably isn't enough value. So we can leave them on there tentatively for now, but everything Lipscomb down, I don't see any realistic path to a championship.
Steven, do you agree, or is your cut even a little bit more strict where you don't even think FGCU has a chance or someone like that?
I'm pretty much the same. I was pretty high on FGCU coming in. I definitely think taking them is a flyer for the value, but I think they're the last team that kind of could come out of it. Realistically, we already disagree because I love having home site games for these small conferences. Like when you want to get all these small schools that don't necessarily draw a ton of fans and put them in a neutral site, then you're essentially getting almost empty gym games. And those to me are a little boring. Like I like having the home sites. And I like how it's how they reward the favorites for having a good record throughout the season. Like you guys actually performed all year. Now you get to stay at home and play your games. But that's just my little rant on that. I really do think it's only the top 4 or 5 teams that really have a shot. Everybody else kind of just here to maybe get one more win to feel good about their season before they go home.
Well, and I think that for a few of them, they can probably, there's a few of them that can make their case for maybe not the NIT, but for an alternate postseason tournament, right? Like
isn't the CIT dead?
CIT's dead, but there's still CBI, I believe. But
yeah.
So I mean, there's a few other minor ones that teams can just make their case for, and I fall in between you guys. So I actually like the way that they do it here in Minnesota for high schools. Is that top seed gets a home game in the first round, and then every subsequent round is at a neutral site. So I do think that you worked hard all year. You should get at least one home game, right? At least one chance to play in front of your fans in a playoff atmosphere. I don't know about every single one, but
yeah.
So like I said, so I'm kind of in between the two of you.
Yeah, that's a good point for that one. And for the ASun overall, it's been alluded to, obviously a one big conference. So this means more than anything else. Sorry, Liberty. You're not going to get an at-large bid, even though how solid it was. I can't see that happening. I think there's a disrespectful line in the conference that we'll get to next, but there's one completely disrespectful line in here, and I'm surprised none of you called it out. I mean, I'm not telling anyone to go place it on Central Arkansas, but they had the second worst odds to win it all, and they're a 3 seed. They're just basically saying they're going to go to Jacksonville and get robbed. That was like the one thing that caught my eye when I was going through the rest of the odds here, was just Stetson literally has better odds to come out. So that's how much the books just hate Central Arkansas's path, or just like Jacksonville that much more. All right. upsets to watch for here. So this is not one of the larger brackets since there's only 12 teams and you do have the bye coming into it. So you don't have a plethora of games. But Steven, it could be day one, it could be day two. So it could be a game that never ends up potentially happening. But do you have any upset special to watch for in a single game in the ASun?
I think my initial upset special that I see on day one that I like just because of the offense, even though they're playing a team that's pretty good at home. I think Eastern Kentucky can come into Kennesaw and just outpace them, outshoot them, and come away with a win. I think I saw they were 4.5-point dogs. You can get them at like plus 160, plus 165 right now. And that's the team where I think they come into the game gassed up a little bit. They just them being able to run up and down the court, shoot threes, kind of score at will. Kennesaw State's been all right. I don't trust them to consistently score with Eastern Kentucky. So just out of the guaranteed games, that's the upset I see the most.
Spin, do you have an upset that you see potentially happening?
Yeah, I have Eastern Kentucky as well. That would be in the first round. I have a couple other ones that I could very easily see happening later. And one of them actually involves Eastern Kentucky. And I could see Eastern Kentucky knocking off Jacksonville State. I think that they actually match up reasonably well with them. The big thing here that I like is the way Eastern Kentucky doesn't turn the ball over and forces turnovers, which are actually two of Jacksonville State's weaknesses. So Eastern Kentucky, 33rd and 21st in offensive and defensive turnover percentage. Jacksonville State, 277th and 274th in those same metrics. And when I look at a team or teams that will perform at this time of year, there are a few key metrics that I look at. And so if you hear me talking about turnovers as a repeated theme throughout the night and throughout all of these, there's a reason why, is because especially in crunch time, in playoff or in do or die basketball, being able to play with nerves and being able to avoid turnovers is something that traditionally wins you games. And so I'll get to one of my other factors here coming up, because there's actually the team that I'm going to pick to win this meets that criteria. But I am a big fan of looking at teams that don't turn the ball over and that can force their opponents to do the same. Eastern Kentucky does that, and that is something where, for as well as they shoot, because Jacksonville can fill it up, if you're turning the ball over in the backcourt, or if you're turning it over before you get into your offense, doesn't mean a whole lot. So I can very easily see Eastern Kentucky knocking off Jacksonville State here.
Ooh, both of you saying Eastern Kentucky brings me back to last year. I picked them and put a ticket on Eastern Kentucky to win it all, and they had that heartbreaker against Morehead State in the second round. So you guys are going and going to live and die by the three, so you guys can enjoy that ride there. It's definitely a fun one. This Eastern Kentucky team, they're just a little bit too, with the three here, it's a little too high volatile. So that's kind of where they can smoke it out and not make the game a worry. Or if they just go ice cold, that 2-point offense is just a little too scary for me there. One of my upset specials I like, and I already alluded to, I still think Lipscomb's big frauds. And the fact that North Florida has a better record, not by much, not saying that they did much to deserve it, because they barely were better than 6-10 in conference to get that. But I just think the travel factor of having to do that, they'll have something on their mind. Sure, North Florida's offense is, yeesh. We're not going to see a barn. Yeah, that's where it's kind of like we got to rely.
That's a good way to describe it, Rex.
We're back in the second best conference overall defense. That's where I'm going with. Defense can win you games, especially when your offense is especially yeesh. I like to look at, especially in the conference tournaments, conference only stats when I do a lot of this capping, because these, especially in the ASun, they'll get some bye games where, sure, it's a 1-game sample size in 30. I just want to remove that completely. And Lipscomb's defense is one of the worst in the ASun overall as well. So I think North Florida has a chance to go and win. They lost to them by 3 in the first time they met this season. Second time they're meeting overall, I like their shots. They're probably only going to be like 4-point dogs, so you'll probably get like a plus 160 to 150 money line on it. But I'll put my money behind North Florida.
Yeah, I can see it too. I understand the take there with North Florida because they they don't they don't do anything particularly well, but they're not like horrible at anything either. Well, okay, I take that back. Offensive rebounding, they're pretty bad. But when I look at just all the statistical factors that I look at to measure like teams that have success in postseason basketball, conference tournaments and beyond, for all the major ones, they're not awful. They like I said, they don't do a lot to help themselves, especially offensively, like Rex said, but they don't hurt themselves either. So you put them in a do or die situation, you get them within one possession at the end of the game. Yeah, who knows? Anything can happen.
And they were sitting at 4-16 at one point. That was all the way at January 22nd. They're now 11-19. So I'm not trying to say they're hot, but it's a lot better than how the season definitely began off.
Well, and actually on that note, Rex, this is actually a nice lead into one of the other major things that I look at for this time of year is I put a lot of stock into upperclassmen and upperclassmen leadership. So not even necessarily like, do they have a lot of seniors on their team? Do they have a lot of upperclassmen that contribute and that have been with the program for more than a year, been in the system for more than a year? The thing about North Florida is of their top 6, only one upperclassman, that's a junior. They have no seniors. Their main rotation is 2 freshmen and 3 sophomores. And those guys have started off the season just really poor, shooting poorly, turning the ball over, but they've really, really come on lately. And so that tells me that it's a team that's matured a lot, that's gelled a lot. And I know we're not talking about it tonight, but if they get a few other decent guys from the transfer portal, we might be not knocking them off the list at this same point next year. We might be talking about them in a different conversation. So
yeah, I was about to say we might
super young
end our North Florida talk here, but no, this is great because this is why I removed conference only stats. They started on the road for 7 games: Tech, Texas A&M, Grand Canyon, Arizona State, UCLA, Kentucky. They got paid a shit ton of money when the program needed money. They're cleaning it up later, whatever it is. Those games probably can pay off in the long run. So is there any other maybe high key matchup or any other upset that you're looking for here? Because one of it's in the semis, and I hope we get it in the semis, but we'll save the semis for its own segment. So is there any one in the second round that you're dying to see?
Okay, so well, actually, I have a question though. Do we think that? So I'll just get out of the way. I think Central Arkansas is going to beat Stetson. I personally think that Stetson is the worst team in that conference, all things considered, top to bottom. Now, that said, do we think that Central Arkansas has any realistic shot of knocking off Jacksonville?
No.
Okay.
I think Stetson could potentially even knock off.
You think so?
Central Arkansas tomorrow. That was my second pick for my dog.
Okay.
I think Central Arkansas might even open as dogs to Stetson.
They might.
No, they won't open as dogs. That's a little too much.
I've had the unfortunate privilege of watching Stetson at least 3 times this year. No, maybe 4.
Why does Stetson have better odds to win the conference tournament? That's like what I can't get past.
But you want to talk about a offense? You talk about Stetson too. Can't shoot. They can't finish around the rim. Their defense around the rim particularly is awful. I just have not been impressed at all with, and even grading on a curve with Stetson. So I think, just personally, I think that Central Arkansas wins the game, but I think that there's a very slight chance that Central Arkansas could knock off Jacksonville. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying go put your money behind it. My concern with Jacksonville here is their shooting. So 243rd in EFG for the season. They're towards the bottom in conference, and they just have too many long spells for me where they just go like ice cold from the floor. I know that they do a really, really, really nice job of they don't put people on the line, and they actually do a pretty decent job offensive rebounding, but they just have too many stretches for me where they go ice cold. So like I said, I'm not saying it's going to happen. If you gave me a free play on the game, I would take Jacksonville, but I could see a world where Jacksonville goes ice cold and Central Arkansas can take advantage and maybe pull one out.
So one last thing to talk about this one, and Steven, I'll let you talk since you've been quiet for a little bit. I've been able to find a website that tracks kills where it's if you give up a double digit run or you allow double digit run. And surprisingly, even though how cold Jacksonville goes, they've given up the second least amount of kills in the league with 6. Jacksonville State owns it with 5. Every other team has 20 plus. And Lipscomb, they allowed the most so far, 24 within play. So that's kind of where I like Lipscomb to go down as the long shot there. So, Steven, do you have a long shot that you're placing any money behind to win it outright? And long shot here,
Not
are
a
you
long
not
shot,
picking
but
Liberty or Jacksonville State? Sorry.
not. I guess my long shot would probably be Bellarmine, but I'm gonna save my real Bellarmine thoughts until we get to the semifinals part of it. But just for that Jacksonville Central Arkansas game, I would say like sometimes Central Arkansas's offense can make it look like they might be able to win that game, but since all these games are at home and not at neutral sites, I cannot go against Jacksonville at home. 14-0 at home against all these teams already. I couldn't. I can't be persuaded to take the other side there, even if there might be some value and some stats to back it up.
But they only get one game.
That's just one of those ones, kind of like at Texas Tech, where it's like anybody they have to play against, if it's in their gym, I'm gonna take them to win.
Spin.
Who's the long shot that you're targeting?
So the long shot that I am so there's only one. That would be Florida Gulf Coast. And at plus 1,600, I think that there's some pretty insane value here. They have already beaten Liberty. They lost by 3, but then they beat Liberty. But the big thing is for Florida Gulf Coast, how Tavion Dunn-Martin has just absolutely dominated, shooting 36% from threes, averaging 21 points per game. But last game against Liberty, I know it was in overtime, but he dropped 43 and he shot almost 50% from the floor, shoots almost 90% from the line. Senior leader guy. I can't say enough of nice things about what he does. And for me, one of the other reasons why I like Florida Gulf Coast is of their top 6, all 6 are upperclassmen and all 6 are familiar with the program. This is an experienced team that's at the peak right now of this group being together, and there really is no tomorrow for them. So I think when you put a guy like Dunn-Martin who can just take over a game and who can shoot the lights out over anybody, and you put that with the leadership that they have, and you put him against with a group that's already beaten the top echelon in the conference, to me, plus 1,600 is just way too short of a number. So for me, that's just value galore.
Steven, do you agree with the Dunk City hype or not?
I mean, I'd always want some Dunk City hype, but since Bellarmine's my long shot, I'm not just gonna come out here and drop a little bit of money on all the top 4 or 5 seeds in the conference tournament. I gotta rock with the newer Division I team.
Yeah, then for my perspective here, if you had to make me take a long shot here, I just think I have to take Jacksonville here at this point. They only faced Jacksonville State, as Steven alluded to. They are the best home court team, so I think they should get through Central Arkansas with no issue. Who it does, it could be Stetson as well. And then when they have to travel to Jacksonville, they lost by 6. Their offense just wasn't there, even though they held Jacksonville State to 64 points. It's still just going to get over the hump. They never got the home game against them, which was unfortunate for them. So it's a revenge spot on the road at plus 900, where I can potentially buy out of it into the championship game against Liberty. That's basically the way I'm looking at it, is if you're going to give me plus 900 odds in a toss-up game where Jacksonville State might be 3.5 and I just have to get through and potential hedge out, that would be my way for looking at it. From who I think it's going to win overall, I have a different winner from that aspect. But if you're trying to arbitrage or place a nice little future, I think plus 900 isn't the worst flyer out there on Jacksonville. So the Dolphins I'll be rocking with. I don't think plus 165 for Jacksonville State. I think that is the worst line out there for every team listed in this conference. I think plus 165, I would need plus 375 to think it, because you're getting plus 165. You essentially have to sweat 2 games, one against Jacksonville. That's not a gimme. You guys are saying Eastern Kentucky is a decent shot to give them a run, so that's not a gimme either. Then Liberty, so then if they do make it to the finals, you probably get a better money line spot. No, Jacksonville would. Liberty host, so they wouldn't even host. That's what I'm saying. Plus 165 to sweat 3 games. No, don't take that.
Yep. Hey, real quick, D-Rock, this is not beer at all. It's just in a beer glass. This would be rum. So, yeah, this would be rum. I don't have to work till later tomorrow morning. I'm good.
All right. Is it time to reveal our semis, our winners, and then get into the Sunbelt?
Let's do it.
All right. Who wants to go first to give their semis?
I can take it first because I think I'm gonna have the I guess not the most wild one, but the final will be a little bit more wild than what you guys have been saying. I think the semis are going to be Jacksonville at Jacksonville State, and then Bellarmine Liberty on the other side. So chalk to start, but since Bellarmine is my long shot that I like, Bellarmine's really the only team that Liberty would have to face that doesn't have that long of a drive. Like Bellarmine's one of I think the only Kentucky team Liberty can face before the championship. So I actually think Bellarmine with their offense, which is also kind of their defense, and just being efficient, not turning it over, they lost that game where they just kind of gave it away in the second half. Like they know they can play with this Liberty team. I'm taking Bellarmine to come out of that side, and then I think Jacksonville's offense, there's just not enough of it on the road. And by the time you get to the semis, these are going to be home court environments in small gyms that all these teams will be seeing for the first time. So I'm going to take Jacksonville State on the other side, have a Jacksonville State Bellarmine final. Since Jacksonville State ends up with the home court advantage in the final, I think Jacksonville State wins it. It's not because I have to be on this team, because I said they were going to win the championship before conference play started when they were still under 500. But I really think this team with their point guard center combo of Brandon Huffman, the North Carolina transfer, and then Darian Adams, I want to call him an elite scorer, even though he only averages 16 a game. I think he has the talent to be an elite scorer. Just having a lead guard and a center like that, I like Jacksonville State to come out of it. I know the odds might feel a little juiced to Rex, who wants them at more than plus 300, but I'm still going to take it at the plus 165 because I really think they come out and win the tournament.
Well, I did not know. I would have said don't take the plus 165. And that's where, when you're breaking down this analysis and looking at futures, you can take a plus 165 because you like the team to win and you think they're going to win like Steven does. And I will never talk you off that. But it's just kind of where plus 165 means what's been, they have a 33% or 34% chance of winning it outright. Yep. So that's just kind of where plus 375, I think, is more of their fair odds, is essentially just what I was saying for having to sweat 3 games where, I don't know, Eastern Kentucky, they should get through fine. I just like the Dolphins, and yeah, that's why. Spin, what's your semis? Who's your winner?
All right. So I think that you have to take Liberty here in the semis. They're certainly the most complete team. They're also the most efficient team. On the top side, I do like the Jacksonvilles to play each other as well. But I said it's plus 1,600, but I think it's got a much better chance than that of happening. I'm going Florida Gulf Coast. Not only am I doing that, I'm going Florida Gulf Coast and Jacksonville State in the final. And I'm going to call my shot right now. Florida Gulf Coast wins this tournament, and Florida Gulf Coast represents in the NCAA tournament. Here's a couple more.
Wasn't it 10 years ago that they did it?
That was Dunk City, Lob City. So
that's wild.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? So, so look, a couple more reasons why here too, in addition to Dunmartin, what Florida Gulf Coast has that not every team that's in their, I'm predicting to be in their same echelon of the tournament has, is a very quality and serviceable big. Kevin Samuel, he's a senior as well, 6'11", 250. He averages almost double-double a game, shoots 64% from the field. They just have such a nice inside-outside combo with him and Dunmartin. And they also have two other shooters in their top six with Kato and Richie, who shoot close to 40% from range. And for me, if you put those guys in a situation where it's just do or die, and this is the end of the run for them, I see their experience taking over. I see their ability to fill the rim taking over. So at plus 1,600, I'm going to bet this one myself as well. Florida Gulf Coast easy for me from a value perspective.
All right. I like it there. Who are they playing again in the finals?
Jack State.
All right. You got the Gamecocks versus them. All right. So with my finals here, I obviously got Jacksonville versus Jacksonville State. I think Kennesaw State personally wins that game, and I'm just not impressed by Kennesaw whatsoever to be able to take out Jack State. I like Jacksonville to get out that side because I wouldn't place lunch money flyer on Jacksonville at plus 900 if I didn't. So I got Jacksonville representing the top. I like Bellarmine to come out of the top side. And my crazy one is is Liberty playing with fire? None of us have really talked about Richie's squad so far. 21-10. And this is the least I think we've ever heard in one of our previews about someone talking about the favorite here. They won their last two games, both went to overtime. The defense has started to look skeptical in the past two. And then before that, they went on a 2-game losing skid as well at Jacksonville and at North Florida. So that's just kind of where do I want to go double upset with North Florida a second time? I don't think they can do that a second one. So I hate going chalk, though. So fuck it. We'll go North Florida out of that side. So we'll Bellarmine versus Jacksonville, and I think Jacksonville is going to win it all. I took the Dolphins on a plus 900 flyer, so let's do it. Realistically, Liberty should get through this conference without really too much of an issue if they play up to their full potential.
Yeah. And my two issues with Liberty here are, I mean, you kind of brought it up, is that so not just not good form lately. They're 3-3 in their last 6, but 2 of those have also been overtime games. So, I mean, they realistically could be 2-4. And I know he's their leading scorer and he's like their Mr. Everything, but they have just become so overly reliant on Darius McGee. They have just been completely reliant on him. He has taken, I mean, he was always their leading shot taker. But I mean, he's been in like Antoine Davis territory lately. I mean, he's taken almost 30 shots a game. Everybody else on the team collectively is shooting, I think like just barely 40% or maybe under. And so when you become one dimensional like that in a playoff situation, and you get a team that's just, not that Liberty won't be, but the team that's just playing under desperation, I can see them doing some scheming for that and maybe somebody knocking them off. So you add that into the fact that this is just super chalky for a conference tournament winner. So, you know, if you're going to put a futures bet on it, for me personally, and I mean, I'm not saying that you guys are, but I'm just for anybody watching, if you're going to put a futures bet on a conference tournament winner, plus 115 is just disgusting to do it against a field of 12. That's just gross to do. To me, there's just no value there.
They have to win 3 games. If you like the way you'd have to look at it and try to potentially even justify the plus 115 is create an open parlay on your book. Go to Ken Palm, go to whatever website you go, see what the odds were when Liberty hosted the team or traveled to at Jacksonville State, and put the money lines together, and that's what you would get your fair odds at if you think you can get better than 1 plus 115 by doing an open parlay. But yeah, Something just tells me Liberty might slip up because it's these conference tournaments. It's going to happen more often than not, and there will be bid stealers, but I don't know if there's really truly a bid stealer. It's more of Liberty or anybody else out here.
Yeah. And just just one last point on Liberty. In the games that they've struggled, because now granted, I've watched them struggle, but against better competition. In the games where they've struggled, they've done two things. One, they've done a very poor job of getting to the free throw line, and they've put their opponent on the free throw line. So they settle way too much for jump shots. They're an okay jump shooting team, but they're not, they are by no means like throwing fire like a South Dakota State or an Oral Roberts or anybody like that. And then number two is that they're just, their whole offensive continuity is just so off, and they get down, and this is not a team that is built to come back from large deficits. So I just, for me, it's been too up and down lately to trust them at the price that they're at. So sorry, Steven, if you were going to say something else.
Yeah, no, I was just going to go back to that Florida Gulf Coast one. I like the team as a whole. It's just tough for me when they have to play in the first round, and then they got to make that Fort Myers to Louisville trip to play just a Bellarmine team that wants to slow you down and play such a gross game. Like it's literally just that travel for that. Like if you guys got it in like the neutral site, Florida Gulf Coast, love the value. I just think the drive makes it tough, which is why I like Bellarmine to get to the championship game, because that drive from Louisville to wherever Liberty plays is one of the easier ones you could get in this bracket. Which I guess is why it's chalk. And just to go to what our next conference is going to be, that's why I have a lot less chalk in the Sunbelt.
I was about to say that is the ASun 20 minutes. That's the first one that three of us did together. So thank you for all of us who get through it. Hopefully the Sunbelt will be a little bit more enjoying, and the bigger ones will have to get a little bit quicker. But it's our format. Definitely let us know any thoughts, questions on how we can chop it up and change it up a little bit differently. But we gave you the odds. We gave you our winners. We gave you teams to fade. We even gave you potential money line dogs to look for. It's all you could potentially need in a conference tournament before we get there to March Madness. Got to shout out our guy Boz. What's up, my man? Yes, Fordham was easy money. So if you tapped into the spaces with us, that's where you heard it. I don't know how easy this will copy and paste, but throw that up into your thing, because that's what the Sunbelt. All your odds, the bracket that you need. I said I tried to make it as easy for you who's tapping in with us. Have that up, because then you can see the paths that we're talking about and everything like that. But the Sunbelt, we got a solid conference tournament here because they're not at the home courts. I know Steven doesn't like that, but it is what it is. You're in Pensacola Bay Center in Pensacola, Florida. So it sounds like a retirement home to me. You got games March 3rd to March 7th. So games tip Thursday. You get a day break, and then you get triple games back to back to back. So depth could be a huge thing that comes into play in this conference when you have your game Saturday, Sunday, and then the championship. I'm pretty sure it gets big ESPN on Monday. Make sure to be checking out our man Jammer Bets. Thank you for tapping in with us. Our man Terrell, yes, got us through with Syracuse, cashed both plays as been alluded to. We'll be dropping that Google Doc soon for all of you to be able to get that free chance at $100. But let's get into the Sunbelt. You have Georgia State as plus 270 favorites, who's the number 3 seed overall. A little weird there. South Alabama, the number 5 seed at plus 410. So that's where you got the Sunbelt being the fun belt, what it would be. Texas State, your number 1 seed, plus 430. App State, plus 600. Who's your 2? Troy at plus 900. Then all the rest of your teams are above plus 1,000. So you have plus 270. I guess you can't really call that a long shot, but almost every team in here could qualify for it, because you're getting over 2.5 to 1, 4.5 to 1 for the rest of them. So in this aspect, it might be a little bit hard to talk about teams that you're crossing off instantly. Sorry to North Alabama and the ASun. We talked every single team name. None of us mentioned their name once. So apologies to any alumni or fans for there. but Spin, you did this the first time.
Yeah, I start. Yeah.
Steven, who are you crossing off instantly here? Is there one team in general, or is there a threshold where you're cutting the mark or two?
Okay, so
Because you can use this time just to shit on one team if one team's been bad to you.
yeah, it's a little weird for me because I'm cutting it off after the fourth team, and then so I'm cutting it off after Troy, but then I'm also blocking out one team and adding them into a team I could trust too, and that's Arkansas State at the plus 1900. So it's the first four. Louisiana Lafayette, Coastal, stink, no chance. Arkansas State actually does have a chance with better value at plus 1900. Then everybody below there, UT Arlington's offense, garbage.
No.
Get them out of here. Little Rock, just a bad team, no chance. UL Monroe, barely even know your school. When was the last time you guys were really good at anything? Don't care. And then Georgia Southern. Well, what are they? The fourth, fifth best team in Georgia to try to be nice? Probably lower than that. They don't really have a chance either. So it's just those top four teams and Arkansas State for me.
All right, I like it. Spin. What are you liking here?
Yeah, for
Or
crossing
who do you
off.
not liking? Sorry.
Yeah, for crossing off, it's the only four that I'm just going to straight up cross off are the bottom four, which is Arlington's, Georgia Southern, Monroe, and Little Rock. I do have a few things that I wanted to go over on Coastal here. Do I think that they'll win it? No, not particularly. I'm not completely counting them out, but I'll explain why in just a little bit. So, but for me, the bottom four, I don't see any realistic path to anything, especially UT Arlington. Their offense is just so bad. Their offense is bad. They turn the ball over left and right. They just no for me. So long-winded way of saying the bottom four are the only four that I would cross off immediately here.
It's like the same way I'm thinking about too, but something wants to tell me to cross off Troy. It just South Alabama having the second best odds to win it overall when they have an extra game to play and they get to play Troy afterwards with, what is that, 500 less odds? That is something telling me to just run Troy right off the board because they get the bye. They don't get the extra game. That's the one team spin because I'm more open to you. I can see a path that Coastal can get there and other teams like that, but it's just, why is Troy like that being that disrespected, or why is South Alabama that high? It's kind of just where I think I just have to cross off Troy because I would make them more at where South Alabama is, and South Alabama more maybe a plus 700. So that's just the odds that got my brain confused in this one.
Yeah, I'll just a few things for me on South Alabama because this is another team that I've watched a bunch of times this year, and I've tailed and been on the other side multiple times. And I find South Alabama to be one of the most overrated mid-majors that there are. I find that just their whole game and their whole system is centered around a lot of them, like just their offense and their shot selection, et cetera, is centered around a lot of the metric stuff that KenPom loves. The rankings and a lot of ranking stuff is based off of KenPom and certain other places. So South Alabama is kind of like Wyoming, where they're always going to be a team that's going to appeal on the surface to like the stat wonks. But then when you watch them, they're just a team that does a number of things just kind of sort of well, but there's no real calling card here. There's just nothing about this team that makes me like, ooh, ah, or even a player on their team that makes me like think, holy shit. You know, I talked about from Florida Gulf Coast, like, wow, like Dunn Martin, like he can just take over a game. South Alabama to me doesn't have that. And so when you have a team like that and you have, I say only, but plus 410 just for me is not enough. So I'm not going to cross them off of like being in contention at all, but this is not a team that I'm looking to bet on or place anything in any parlay of any sort in this.
Well, that's the fun part about saying crossing off. You can talk numbers wise as you want to back them at that number, but you think they can still win it. Or it's just a fact that where it's like, I kind of just have to cross off Troy and South Alabama because It's just so weird. I think that's going to be your crazy spot. If you are a person that's team chaos, that's where I think it's going to happen. No, Little Rock's not going to make any noise, but I think that South Alabama Troy game, it could be issues for Texas State. That's who D-Rock's going to be rocking with. But upset special, who's got one for me? Is it a game that's scheduled or is it a potential game here?
Steven, you want to go? Or
No one
Yeah,
likes an
I'll
upset
go
special.
with,
oh no, I got one.
I'll go with Arkansas State over Georgia State in the second round. I think Arkansas State gets past ULM easy. I think they get past Georgia State a little tighter, but I think they get past them. That's the main one I'm looking at. I really like the way Arkansas State plays. I can't trust them as much on the road, but when they're at home or at a neutral site, I think they're just a more well-rounded team, and I don't buy Georgia State as being the betting favorite right now. I think this is the conference where you see the majority of like the conference tournament madness, with just like a bunch of lower seeds and teams that are playing in the first round being in the semifinals and potentially the finals. But the main upset I see in the second round is the Arkansas State over Georgia State.
All right. I like Coastal. I like Coastal to win too, win the first game and beat App State. So the one thing that I keep in mind here is that App State beat them by 1 at home. They won in overtime at Coastal, and that was on a home and home back-to-back. And when you have a team or situation like that, it's extremely difficult to beat a team 3 times in one season, especially in that close of proximity when the games were competitive to begin with. And when I look at these two teams, I think that they actually match up reasonably well. The thing that I really, really like here for a hypothetical matchup between Coastal and App State is Coastal does a superb job offensive rebounding. They're 33rd in the country. They're first in the conference, and App State 243rd in 243rd in the nation overall, and almost last in the conference in controlling the offensive glass. I go back to my upperclassmen again. Coastal starts 4 seniors and a junior. And so they have 1 freshman that also plays a role, but really their top 5 of their top 6 is upperclassmen. And they have had some wins against the top upper echelon of this conference. So I think that the third time would be a charm here, and Coastal would knock off App State.
Ooh, so you like kind of the reverse mantra where I was kind of going at. This line's probably going to open at Louisiana as just -3, but UTA is beating them twice already this year on their home court, and once in overtime by 3. They've had 2 of their best offensive games when they get going against them. They get it going from the inside, so that's just kind of where UTA, they could potentially go past ULL, and I think that ULL might be all your Capper's favorite play because we're going to see UTAs on a 3-game skid to go off there. They had 49, 53, 52 points in the last 3 games as well. There's not much to buy into that other than Missouri, who got named to first team all conference. Could just get hot at the right time and just knock off ULL, because ULL's defense ranks way towards the bottom within conference play. So that's just kind of where, when you have that much of a liability there and you rely on the pace that much, UTA's defense isn't that strong, but they can muck it up enough to potentially get there. My bigger upset, I guess, might come a little bit further down the way in the semis, because I just see one low seed team rolling pretty far. So I guess that's where I would have to go. So I'll save that till we get to the semis talk. Is there any matchup that you're dying to see? Because I already talked about Troy, South Alabama. That's the one I probably want the most of. That's not a semis matchup.
Yeah, that would be one for me. So prior to the semis, I actually wouldn't mind seeing round 3 of Coastal and App State, because I watched most of their overtime game, and I actually watched part of both their games, their first 2 games, and it was nip and tuck both ways. So I would not mind on a neutral floor seeing round 3 between App and Coastal.
Yeah, I think it's got to be South Alabama Troy for me. Just for a game I want to see not in the semis. I can't really think of anything else that I'm really dying to see up until maybe a potential championship game. Is probably like the main matchup I would really want to sit down and watch. But
I mean, Ark State, Georgia State is probably the other one because why did they not play each other this season?
True.
That's like one of the wildest things, which is kind of just where I can see Ark State running it. I mean, they're not hot at the right time. They're on a bad skid because they were sitting at 15-6, or now 17-10. But it's just a strange thing where you usually at least get one matchup against each other. There's no barometer test for this one, so especially in a neutral site court, I'll get to it with who I have in the semis and who I have in the finals. I got Texas State and I got Troy. I am not buying the South Alabama love, and I got Arkansas State versus App State, and I'm going to rock with Arkansas State to make it to the finals against Texas State, but I have Texas State winning it all. So Texas State versus Arkansas State.
Yeah, that's actually reasonably close to mine. So I have my semifinals are Texas State and Troy, and then I have Arkansas State and Coastal. I have Coastal making it to the championship game against Texas State, but I got to go with Texas State here. One quick thing about Georgia State is for me is that they just don't shoot the ball well enough. They just don't have enough offense. And I know they do a lot of other things very well, specifically rebound and take care of the ball. But I mean, their overall shooting percentage, especially on neutral floors, is just hideous. So at this point in the season, you got to be able to put the ball in the net, and that's one of the things that was one of my big deciding factors with Texas State. They're the best shooting team metrically, conference wise and overall for EFG. They're 103rd in the country actually, so they're almost top 100 with some of the big dogs there, and I just don't think Georgia State finds enough offense in a format like this, especially on a neutral floor.
Yeah, I have to go with Texas State as well.
It's a mush.
It might be, but Spin wants to talk about teams being veteran teams. Texas State runs 5 seniors in their starting lineup. They gang rebound. They don't necessarily have a super tall guy. Like they have 2 guys that are 6'8", but everybody on their team outside of Mason Harrell, who's 5'9", so you can't really expect much out of him anyway. But everybody else in that starting lineup rebounds the ball reasonably well. They shoot pretty well. I just love their draw because the UTA Louisiana winner not going to beat them.
Troy don't say that. UTA got them.
Not again. Revenge.
Got them by 12.
Seniors revenge. Nah. Troy can't shoot with them. That puts them in the championship game.
Troy beat them too.
Not again. So I have Texas State, and I'm actually Texas State's not even going to see Troy. It's going to be Texas State, South Alabama in the upper half of the bracket. Then I got Arkansas State, and you know what? I'll rock with you with Coastal, Spin. So it'll be Texas State, South Alabama, Arkansas State, Coastal as my 4. So
Roddy,
a lot
sorry.
more.
None of us picked Georgia State, the betting favorite, to win their only game of the tournament. Roddy's an alumni, so a man from the Players Ball. We're sorry, Perlito.
So I have a lot of upsets happening before the semifinals. Mm-hmm. I have Arkansas State getting to the championship game to face Texas State. So I think there's a lot of chaos that happens throughout the tournament just for the 1 seed to come out at the end. Yep. Is how I got it going.
We're all very aligned in that aspect. And the odds from Vegas perspective as well are just telling you the Sunbelt, there's a few metrics and a few advantages you can say against these teams. But when you go back and look at it, I mean, Texas State got the 1 seed, and sure, they still went 12-3 in conference. They haven't taken a loss in February whatsoever. They're most of their losses came earlier in the season. They're the most proven team. They played LSU and Vanderbilt tough, even though they lost to both of them. Played Houston, got smoked by them. But we like Texas State. They were in the 20 last. No, Texas Southern was in it last year.
Yeah, Texas Southern last year.
So that's where we like it. Not a lot of App State love. I feel like that's the team of all of them that we might have talked the least amount on, Spin. I know you hit on their game against Coastal, but we're not trying to say App State ain't no slouch to get there, but I just think their matchup against is just too tough.
Yeah, and with App State, really aside from Adrian Delph, I just don't. I go back to the same problem that I talked about Georgia State probably having is outside of Adrian, there's just really nobody else that you can just count on to go get buckets and fill the net up. He's their senior leader. He's taken about 15 to 20 shots per game, but in a tournament like this, when it's your third time seeing them, so much about these teams, and I'll put on my coach hat for a minute here. Just when it's your third time seeing a team, there's not a whole lot that they can do to surprise you. Furthermore, if they have a leading scorer, or if they have if they are kind of more one-dimensional, you can scheme relatively easily to at least limit that particular player's offensive opportunities because you've seen them so much. You have 2 games of film, you have a plethora of other games that you can watch, but you have your own experience. And so it's just so hard. And that's why it's so hard to beat a team 3 times in a row, because you can scheme just exceptionally well for that one player. And that's my problem with App State, is that after that, Donovan Gregory, Justin Forrest, they're okay. They're fine, but they're ancillary pieces. They're not the guy. And when you get in that situation, you do need to get the ball to a guy and say, go get me a bucket, go get me a score right now. And and I guess maybe Delph is just good enough to do that against this conference, but I can see, with being the third time around, I can see a team like Coastal scheming this pretty well.
Yo, who'd you guys say won the conference tournament last year?
It was Texas Southern, wasn't it?
Texas Southern's in the SWAC.
Yeah, they're in the SWAC. That's where I thought Texas State won it, but I didn't think because it was Texas Southern.
I just went back and double checked it. App State went on a crazy run and won it last year.
Oh, that's right.
And I couldn't tell what exact seed they were because they were still doing the dumb division thing, like East West. But App State was number 4 seed in their yeah 4 seed in their division. So I'd assume probably 7 or 8 overall.
Yep.
Which actually fits perfectly with Coastal as the. I was just going to say that fits in line perfectly with Coastal also coming out as the 7 seed and just going on a crazy run and winning the tournament.
Hey, you can dream. Last thing, just to wrap it up with this conference, if no one else really has that many thoughts, as we talked about the kill shots and the kill runs earlier, that's where you have a 10-point run against you or you go on a 10-point run. Texas State has only allowed 9 of them this season. Everyone else in the conference is above 10. Other than Georgia Southern. So maybe Georgia Southern could keep a game close for no reason. I really doubt that against Coastal. But no, that's just where there's only 2 teams within the conference that didn't allow more than double-digit kill shots allowed. It's a nice little new metric that college hoops made it into this year. I like watching runs because you always want to be on the team that's a little bit more consistent, that gets on them and doesn't allow them. I wish I could filter out for non-con, but we'll get there with someone's Excel that we're using here. So did we all lock in with D-Rock or plus 430s? Because I put a small flyer on it.
Yep. Yeah. That's my pick as well. Actually, other than maybe like a lunch money flyer on Coastal, for me, Texas State is probably the only team that I would be actively looking to bet on to win this tournament. To me, there's just, I mean, if you get South Alabama at plus 410 and then Texas State at better or plus 430, I mean, that's easy. We talked about Georgia State. We talked about App State. A super sprinkle on Coastal is the only other thing that I'm actively looking to put my money on besides Texas State.
I would look at Arkansas State for a sprinkle. It's not as great as odds, but that would be the other team because I got them in my championship game. And if you're going to give me the triple-digit numbers, sure. But from the 2 plays from the stream, I got the Flyers on. Don't you worry for the bigger conferences. We'll be on half unit and probably full unit future bets for them. These are just the warm-up. It was the practice episodes for the ASun and Sunbelt, but I'm rocking Jacksonville at plus 900, then Texas State at plus 430. Both Flyers. When I say Flyer, it's less than a quarter unit.
Yep. I'm rocking with Jacksonville State as the main Flyer in the ASun, but also sprinkling just a little bit on Bellarmine. And then Texas State in the Sunbelt.
Spin, you want to wrap up your official ones from the 2, and that's how we'll end today's show?
Yep. So I'm rocking with Florida Gulf Coast from the ASun at plus 1,600. And I'm rocking with Texas State from the Sun Belt at plus 430. I am probably going to take a small sprinkle on Jacksonville, not Jacksonville State, because there's no value there. Jacksonville at plus 900, and a small sprinkle on Coastal at plus 1,300.
Well, tomorrow, you already know. Ooh, we might not do spaces tomorrow. It's a decent slate.
No, it's Tuesday.
We'll let you know. But yeah, we got 2 conference previews coming for you tomorrow. That would be the West Coast Conference and the Ohio Valley. So once again, I'll tweet out those little helpful tournaments, odds, all that to get you ready for tomorrow's stream. They'll be at our usual time unless we decide to go later. But as of right now, I'm just thinking we keep it at our usual Tuesday time.
Yeah. Yo, nice little live update on this Mountain West game for the boys. San Diego State actually shooting the lights out for once, up by 9 in the second half, by to end Wyoming's undefeated streak at home. I love to see it personally.
Yep, and we appreciate everyone who tapped in with us, rocking with us today. You got the Baylor-Texas game about to tip off. And if you're catching in with us late, ASun starts tomorrow. Sunbelt doesn't start till Thursday, so we have more than enough time to hype it up, preview some more things. Hopefully no bad injury news comes out for any players. Knock on wood, we want to see these conference tournaments as fully healthy and as great as possible because it's the best time of the year. It's to get your bracket practice in. We'll be catching out with you later. Until tomorrow, thank you to everyone who's tuned in.